Michael, good start. Good evening, members, officers and members of the public. Welcome to the annual meeting of East Cambridgeshire District Council. Before we begin the formal business and then a change to the agenda, I would very much like to invite Reverend Mike Banyard from the Church of England to lead us in prayer. If we've got those that are able to could stand. Oh, thank you.
Lord God, you have taught us that we belong in community and are called to serve one another. Strengthen each of us for this task. We thank you for the communities to which we belong and for those who share with us in service. Help us not to miss opportunities to contribute to our communities or to meet the needs of our neighbours. We pray for peace in the world and for the nations of the world, for their prosperity and harmony, for Charles, our King, our government, national and local, and for all those who maintain order and uphold justice in this and every nation. We pray for the city here, for its towns and villages of East Cambridgeshire, for all who represent us in Parliament and on this district council, and on our parish councils too. We pray for all in need and for those who care for them, for refugees and those without shelter or work, for the sick, the lonely and the despairing, the bereaved and the distressed, for all who suffer through violence, warfare, crime, exploitation, or neglect. Merciful Father, accept all these our prayers for the sake of your Son, our Saviour, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Well, I'd like to thank Mike, and I think we can show our appreciation in the normal manner for what really fitting and very uplifting prayer. Thank you very much, Mike. Please return to your seats. Thank you, Mike. I'll speak to you soon. Yeah. Okay, having asked you to sit down again, I'm probably going to ask you to stand again in a second, as we will now observe a minute's silence in memory of the former councillor Bill Pickus, who served this council with commitment from 2003 to 2007, and we've learned of his passing. So if we could please stand and observe a minute's silence. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. It calls on me to invite members that may recall or want to say a few words about Bill Pickus. Is there anybody that would like to speak? Councillor Bill Hunt, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I first met Bill Pickus actually in this room, and it was in 2006. He was sitting on the planning committee, and I was the county council member for Haddon, Wilburton and Streatham, etc. And there was a new town being planned called Meerham, and all the population were against it. All the councillors were against it. The officers had recommended refusal for this thing, which was going to destroy the local area. And I made my case and said it had got to be thrown out and everything, and I could see nods everywhere. However, independent thinking Bill Pickus said that this is something that's going to happen anyway, so I might as well agree with it. So although the committee said no by 11, it wasn't 12, and Bill Pickett was the one who said, well, it's going to go ahead. I'll let it go. So I had a very low opinion of Bill. And I thought he couldn't understand what the sort of good arguments were. However, in 2012, my son was very interested in politics, and for that matter still is. And he wanted to stand as a local councillor, and he stood in Ely South, and his co-conspirator, I would say, was Bill Pickett. And so my son's, a lot of his political education came from what was a fairly independent thinking man. However, of course, Bill was generous with his advice, helped him and gave him good advice on many occasions. And the net result was that my son got elected to Parliament, and some of that was Bill Pickett's advice. I don't think it was all of it. I think there must have been some common sense come in somewhere. Bill was a lover of Ely and local government, and he gave his heart and soul to it. And the last time I saw him, he was very active in local politics and caring about it and caring about his commitment. So he was a committed man. He was a committed local man, and he was a real lover of Ely. And I think he's one of those people who contributes to society, or did contribute to society. He was a real goer, a real gentleman, and actually it's someone who's a big privilege for me to have met and known. And I'm sure he's looking down, being critical of us tonight. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Nice words. Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? I think we've covered that off. Thank you very, very much. So we move to agenda item 1, which is public question time. We will now proceed with 15 minutes of public question time. Jane, do we have any questions? Can't see the box. Yeah. Okay.
You could take all the questions together.
Okay. Yeah.
But we can start to check.
Okay, sure. So for those watching and for those that maybe don't know, the questions just have to be validated to make sure that they're valid and not of any unfortunate nature. And once they're validated, they will be passed over for consideration. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so we do have John Setchell in the room. John, would you like to ask the first question? If you'd like to come forward to the bench. In front of you, you've got a microphone. If you just press that to speak, and you'll get a lot of time, which will be indicated by the lights in front of you, John, all right? Thank you. Lovely.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm here today on behalf of the CAMS Unitaries campaign, as the campaign for a unitary authority that will be coming into play in the coming years, and determining the principles around how the new unitaries should be formed. The key points are, and they were sent out to all councillors as far as I am aware, being that there must be a genuine improvement in democratic accountability. So changes must increase democratic accountability while being able to take difficult decisions. Each council should have a coherent economic area. Each council should contain a reasonably coherent culture, and each council should cover a single travel for work area. Additionally, we believe unitaries should reflect coherent housing, rental patterns, have clarity about funding. The councils should be able to share services and work together, and that councils must not be so large as to lose touch with the people. We also believe there must be clarity of relations within the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority and the Mayor, although our organisation is opposed to the existence of a mayoral position. We recognise that government will likely retain it. It is not clear why it will be necessary in the context of, say, 3 unitary authorities to have an overarching authority. For instance, it would make little sense to have a unitary council managing issues like housing, growth and transport, but have another body set the strategy for these. The question that we have to the District Council is, do you agree with the principles that we have set out? Will you push for a unitary authority that has clear powers to manage change effectively with strong democratic accountability and which ending up looking in multiple directions?
John, thank you very much for your question. I'll call upon the leader, Councillor Anna Bailey, to respond to that question. You're welcome to sit, John. I didn't make that clear. I do apologise. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Setchell, for your question and representing your organisation here tonight. The decision by government to fast track what is, one of the most significant changes to local government in 50 years or more has brought with it many challenges, and not least the nature of how we judge the merits of any new unitary proposal. And of course, all proposals need to evidence how they meet the government's key criteria, which, as you know, includes achieving average population sizes of 500,000 or more, and to be the right size to achieve efficiencies, improve capacity and withstand financial shocks. And the new unitaries must prioritise the delivery of high quality and sustainable public services, be a credible geography and identity, and meet local need and demonstrate local support economic growth and devolution arrangements, increase housing supply, it's a key point of the government, be of a sensible economic area so that we avoid creating advantages or disadvantage for other areas. It's got to work across the geography fairly, I think, and be balanced, and enable stronger community engagement, neighbourhood empowerment and democratic accountability. It's a big ask. And there's a presumption that the new unitaries will be built on existing council boundaries, and you have to make big exceptions if you want to go outside of that. So many of these criteria do obviously correlate to the principles identified by yourself just now. And while I believe that some of the government criteria for success are utterly flawed, frankly, not least the proposals that unitaries should cover services to populations of 500,000 or more, which I don't support. I do agree that obviously we've got to try to retain or improve democratic accountability, keep our councils as local as possible, and ensure the identity and needs of our cities and towns and villages are reflected and nurtured equally within the new unitary council or councils. Any proposals put forward to government must address a whole area, and while there may be an argument for a strong single unitary in one part of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, this cannot and must not disadvantage other areas. Therefore, there's a significant and delicate balancing act between financial sustainability, identity, economic growth and housing that we've got to try to achieve to ensure that any new unitary is put on a sustainable footing. We are planning, we've already been out to our residents in East Cambs. I think we're the only authority in the area to have done some public engagement. We got a very significant response in a short space of time. Very positive about the merits of this council, I'm pleased to say. We will be going back out to residents, parishes and businesses again quite soon to find out about what really matters to them so that our proposals genuinely try to reflect their views where that's possible. And I would just add from my own personal point of view that for me, the very best thing about East Cambs District Council is that it's small. It's its most biggest asset, frankly. We're nimble and that when we're close to the people that we and businesses that we serve and we represent. And I think that is a huge asset and will be a huge loss in the future when we're made bigger. I really can't support the government diktat that new councils have got to have 500,000 population or more. Most councils in this country of that size are failing really badly. So in my humble opinion, small really is beautiful in the world of local government. But, I'm working with leaders across the geography and chief executives. We're meeting on a very regular basis and we're doing our best to try to reach consensus, although I suspect it may prove difficult, but we'll see. And obviously we're working to the deadline of November when the area has to submit final proposals to government.
Thank you, Mr. Setchell, and I think you've had a very comprehensive answer, but thank you very much for joining us tonight and asking your question. Greatly appreciated. Do we have a Vanessa Bramer here? Vanessa, please take to the seat if you can, and when you're ready to speak and put your question, if you could just press the light in front of that, will start the time and everything. When you're ready to be comfortable,
Okay,
okay?
I'm not very good at speaking at these
We
things.
will wait for you. You're in charge.
Okay, I've never been to one of these meetings before. The reason I'm here is because I'm hearing a lot of information on social media, on Village Talk, etc. I live in Sutton, and I'm talking mainly about the proposed crematorium. So I heard about it and everybody said, are we going to come? We were all trying to get together because we only heard about this meeting on Monday, that it was actually happening. So I tried to get people together, but a lot of people have said that they would like to come, but they can't come because they're at work and they can't get here possibly by 6 o'clock, that kind of thing. So because I was off, I said that I would come. So don't hang me, William. I really wanted to ask a few questions about this proposed crematorium. Obviously, I've lived in Sutton for 30 years now, and I've seen information in and out of the local village forum, whatever guise you want to put it in, about the Meeple Centre, the outdoor centre that used to be on the premises there. There was obviously a couple of incidents there with raves, illegal raves and all this kind of stuff, and they had to get security in, etc., etc. I don't agree with important decisions like this being firstly on social media. Secondly, I don't agree with us finding out about it in the village a lot later than we should have done. £13 million is a lot of money. That's the money that's being bandied around the village. That's the kind of conversation and the rumour that is going around Sutton at the moment. I understand there's a petition, which I have signed, and many of my other people in the street have also signed against the crematorium. The reason for that is, well, first reason for that is that I certainly wouldn't want to be wishing farewell to my loved and closest friends next to a biodigester, which is right next door, and it stinks. Also, it's right next to the A142 with the lorries, etc., etc. So I don't want to be having something like that there. But the main point we're all trying to make is that £13 million of public money, that is money that was given to us, the community, the public, to be spent on various infrastructure things, i.e. parks, skate parks, places for the children to go where there's more than 1 or 2 benches to sit at that all the parents are fighting over, that kind of thing. Having to go to Hadnam to get to a skate park that was really built, it's a lovely thing for kids. We have nothing in Sutton. Now, the money is obscene, £13 million being spent on something like that we've got plenty of anyway in the area, I don't think is fair to spend. And I also understand from rumour that this decision was taken behind closed doors. It was all done in secret. So I'd like somebody to confirm whether it was or whether it wasn't. And a lot of people who I'm here representing today would like to ask the lead or the leader of this meeting as to whether there would be a public inquiry as to how our public money is spent.
Vanessa, thank you very, very much. I'm going to take from that there were 2 or 3 questions in there, which is fine, and I think we've got that covered. You're welcome to have a seat. Don't feel you've got to stand on ceremony. I'm going to ask the leader. We have 2 other questions, I believe, from people that aren't here. We've got 3 other questions from people that are there. What I think would be the best thing to do is if we hear those questions and then allow the leader to come back on all of them. Are you happy with that? Yeah? Yeah, if I take my glasses off, I am. Yeah. So this is from Charmaine Switzer of 42 Cambridge Road, Ely. Firstly, I support the decision to build the bereavement centre near Meeple, the sooner the better. Secondly, I believe the site is so much more than a beautiful, tranquil, desirable spot to rest, much more special than other nearby crematoria. I myself would like to rest there one day when I die. The rich biodiverse environment needs to be protected. My question to the council is, what are you going to do to protect the wonderful biodiverse area? What assessment has the council done in relation to its effect on the biodiversity and nature? I do hope that all the plans for this wonderful facility will be underway soon. I apologise. Is there a Drew Silver in the room? No? Okay, well, I will read the question. This is obviously from Drew Silver of Ely. Can we have an independent public inquiry into council's behaviour surrounding the repurposing of what was the site of Meeple Outdoor Centre? I and many others in the East Cambs district have raised concerns following the exclusion of the public during the first 18 months of the project's development and the unethical spending of funds. Development should be immediately halted until we can verify there is genuine need for a crematorium that warrants 13 million expenditure in that location and whether or not it's what the public wants. That was from Drew Silver.
Just check.
And do we have Simon Dean in the room? I apologise. That was Simon Hazeldine. No. Okay. I will again read his question then. Dear Council, please can you explain why you are trying to force through a crematorium project when, one, the site is badly affected by an overpowering smell from the biodigester plant next door, as well as flies from the stagnant lakes. This makes the site totally unsuitable. Two, crematoriums nationally are seeing a downturn in business due to the popularity of no-fuss cremations. This means the viability of the long-term business is extremely uncertain. Three, several posts on local social media have shown roughly 80% of people expressing an opinion are against the plans. The council is supposed to represent the local people. Four, the costs have nearly doubled in just a few years and will almost certainly exceed the £13 million currently being quoted. That is a shocking waste of public money and could be far better used in the community. Five, nobody asked for a crematorium. If no alternative can be found for the land, why not just allow the site to return to nature? Thank you, Simon Hazeldine. That completes the questions. So that completes the questions. So I'll now invite the leader. Do you want a minute? No. Okay. Now invite the leader, councillor, to respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm hoping you might give me, if I go over 5 minutes, because obviously got lots of different questions there and I don't want to do my best to try and address them. I've scribbled them all down. It's very helpful just for future reference if we can have questions in advance so I could be a bit more prepared. But listen, thank you so much for coming and representing people. Really appreciate it, and the others that have put their questions in. I would very much encourage you to stay for the item if you've got time, because you will hear all sides of and a much more rounded discussion than perhaps has been taking place on social media. So if you can do that, that would be great. So there were various questions there. There was questions around the time of this and how long it's been in the public domain. This, in fact, the ambition to deliver a crematorium goes back well before the elections in 2019. It appeared in the District Council's corporate plan many years ago. And in fact, you know, at that time, we hadn't identified any site or anything like that. We were quickly advised by experts that it was not best to advertise the fact that you wanted to try to deliver a crematorium. It is a highly competitive and litigious field, and that you needed to do extensive work before you were clear about what you were doing. However, the fact that this crematorium is in the proposals has been known for a very long time now. And the decision certainly was not taken behind closed doors. The actual decision, we've received a lot of information, some of which has been in exempt papers going back over many years, but the covering paper is always in the public domain. So the fact that we wanted to deliver a crematorium at this site has been known for a very long time. So it wasn't the final decision, the final business case was taken in open session at this council in February 2024, I think it was. And frankly, when you're dealing with a commercially sensitive project, it is completely normal process to do some preparatory work behind the scenes and for much of that information to remain in, it is commercially sensitive, so you can't put it out there. Otherwise, it's just not going to work as commercial operators. will have access to it. So it is normal process. It goes on at every single council in the country when they're working on commercially sensitive projects. In relation to the cost, I think what really matters most importantly here is, yes, it was £9 million that we were setting aside when we previously looked at this, but we hadn't got a price yet. We've been out to tender. It's been a very competitive tender process. We had a lot of bids. The framework contract that we used was a really brilliant framework contract that allowed the council to go through a process of selecting a preferred provider and then really driving the cost really hard. So there has been a really detailed line-by-line budget analysis on every single item of expenditure that's been reviewed by the council's independent quantity surveyors and challenged every single line against the provider in a sort of open book process. So I think what really matters here is the council, our taxpayers, getting value for money, and I am absolutely assured that they really are. And this is going to be, if it goes ahead tonight, it's going to be a fixed price contract as well. So, the price will be set. I think it's really important to understand that this is not just about a crematorium. This project is so much more than that. The project is about securing and protecting and enhancing a very beautiful, much loved and special site for the community now and into the future. The site is really unique. You obviously sound like you're quite familiar with it. It's a designated wildlife site. It's home to nationally important species that are using it as their home. And we've been working with the Wildlife Trust, who are really pleased with the management plans that we've been able to put forward as part of this project. But the Bereavement Centre, and why we renamed it, is because we want to offer a really supportive service. Mike Banyard talked about the necessity to support the bereaved, and that is what we want to do from this council. And I think we can do it really quite differently at this site. It's an eco-crematorium using electric cremators. There aren't many in the country, and that matters to a lot of people. There's going to be a natural burials area, a pet cemetery area, woodland walks, a lakeside setting. The chapel looks out onto the lake, a beautiful vista, very simple to say goodbye to loved ones. And residents will be able to enjoy the site for walking and bird watching and fishing. Those are the controlled fishing through a fishing club. Those are the activities that the Wildlife Trust has said can be run compatibly with the biodiversity and the wildlife on the site. And so it will remain, a site that is available to our whole community. And what I really hope is, because it's an electric cremator, it's limited to 2 cremations per day of operation. What that means is it's a very different offer to other crematoria, because people will be able to come and, instead of feeling like they're on a sausage factory and being put in one end and put out the other while the next cortege is arriving behind them, they will be able to have time at the site to gather with friends and loved ones. There'll be a function room that they can use to have celebration or wake afterwards, and to meet all their friends and family and have time there. And I also truly believe that this will be, most people, unless you've got a memorial plaque perhaps, don't go back to crematoria to remember your loved ones. But I believe this site, which is massive, the lakeside walk is huge, will naturally encourage people to go back and pause and reflect and think about their loved ones at this site. So I think it is a very different offer. The site needs securing, it needs to be used, it needs to be managed to protect and enhance the wildlife that's there. We had an ambition to deliver a crematorium. This will serve the vast majority of the population of East Cambridgeshire. Most people live in Ely, Littleport and so on. That is where the large populace of our district is, and it is all accessible to those people who don't currently have facilities in the district. You asked about the use of SIL. So Community Infrastructure Levy is a pot of money that we collect. It's essentially like a roof tax on all SIL chargeable development. Very significant sums. Best thing we ever did as council, to be quite honest, because we've pulled in 35 million. We're a small district. And SIL has supported the delivery of massive number of projects so far across our district. Just to give some examples, alongside our growth and infrastructure fund as well, which was a separate pot of money, but we've supported many local community projects, new community centres, leisure centres, cycle routes, footbridges, schools, learning hubs, GP surgeries, new and improved roads, sports facilities, new car parks, land for cemetery space. The list goes on. We've also passported nearly £6 million given directly to parish councils, and Sutton, having a neighbourhood plan, actually gets 25% of all the SIL receipts that this council receives for development that happens in Sutton, and has very few restrictions on how it can spend that money locally. The district council does have much greater restrictions on how we can spend our SIL funds. The parishes don't, so long as they can show that it supports growth. So your ambition for a skate park, absolutely legitimate for the Sutton Parish Council to consider delivering a skate park through its significant SIL receipts that it's received. And I would definitely take that up with them. The district council's portion of SIL funds are much more about strategic projects. So we've supported things like Ely Southern Bypass, the A14 upgrade, the Hive District Leisure Centre. They're usually much bigger, more strategic projects to support growth. And a bereavement centre is absolutely a community facility that supports growth. We're a massive growing district. We're growing at 2%, pretty unprecedented, one of the largest growth areas in the country. So we need to cater for this. And I think we have an opportunity to do it really, really well. Yes, the site is next to the biodigester plant. The buildings are sited very far away. It never caused any issues in the past by people using that site. It has had some use in the past. You know, I really genuinely don't think it's going to be an issue. People be in the chapel. So, you know, all in all, I'm hoping. I've just got there was another question that I haven't addressed about nature and biodiversity. And I thank the questioner for their question. And specifically, they were saying that they want us to get on with it, but also what is the council going to do to protect the nature and biodiversity? So over the past year, we've been undertaking numerous ecology surveys. The site's been surveyed extensively, and we've been working with the Wildlife Trust to develop an ecology management plan and the layout of the landscaping. The natural environment is featured very heavily in every single part of our design, including retention and restoration of the large natural sand dunes in the planting, additional native trees and grasses around the site, and maintaining the natural burial area as a flower meadow, which I think is going to be really beautiful. And residents will also be able to put up memorialisations to their loved ones with additional trees and bat or bird boxes. And we really want to encourage nature into the site. So in the coming months, we're also planning to invite expressions of interest from fishing clubs to use the northern edges of the lake, which are miles away from the buildings. And the successful club will have to demonstrate how they'll manage the lake carefully to protect the wildlife. There's some important species in the lake itself, and ensure people fish there responsibly. And as I've said, the site will be open to the public for sort of contemplative walks and bird watching so that everyone will be able to enjoy the surroundings. So when the time's right, we're going to be inviting the public to an open day to the centre so that we can share with you the newly restored natural landscape. And I really hope that you will come along. And I really hope that people that have asked questions will stay and listen to the debate, because I think you'll hear a more rounded view about what our proposals are and why we think it's a good idea. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Vanessa, I just want to point out, and this is for your colleagues and also for anybody that's asked a question tonight that hasn't made it tonight, if they've not managed to be here tonight and they're not watching live on YouTube, I mean, A, what are they doing? But, sorry?
You've got to deal with the public inquiry. Sorry.
Well, I think we've gone on long enough, don't you? I think we've had enough of that.
Is it?
Yeah, sorry, there's live screening going on. This has actually been live streamed now. You look wonderful. Don't worry about that. Can I just say that is also the recording from tonight is posted on the website of the council, so anybody can go back in and hear your question, comment on whether you wash your hair or not, and have a look at the answers. All right. All right. Thank you very much for coming. It's very much appreciated. We wish you had more. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you. I think that concludes public question time.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to agenda item 2, which is apologies for absence. I think I know the answer to this, Jane, but I've got to ask. No apologies for absence. Thank you very much. Item 3 is the election of the Chair of Council for 25-26 municipal year. Councillor Kelly Pettit has been proposed by Councillor Bailey and seconded by Councillor Huffer. Does the proposer wish to make a short statement in support of their nomination? Councillor Bailey.
Yes, thank you. I would very much like to nominate Councillor Kelly Pettit. I understand she's recently taken chair of Fordham Parish Council. So she's been genning up on the role very extensively. I think she's a calm head, and I think she will be a really excellent chair. And I hope that, you know, the whole council will support her in that role if she's successful this evening.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Christine Whelan has been proposed by Councillor Ross Trent and seconded by Councillor Christine Colbert. Does the proposer wish to make a short statement in support of their nomination? Councillor Trent.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, very happy to nominate Christine Whelan. I think she'll be very fair, and I think she's a very popular councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, we now proceed to vote by a secret ballot. These are the rules of our council. The ballot will be conducted by Jane and Patrick, and then results announced by Jane. Therefore, oh no, that's the bit that comes next. Yeah, what's a bit? Yeah, good call. Off with the heads. What have they done? Don't know yet.
The new chair makes that. If you absorb and go say you know change this here.
It's a photographer here.
It is Annalise.
Annalise is going to do it.
I was thinking, hey, can you turn that?
And again, for those watching and for those that maybe are not totally aware, the first thing we do is make sure that is a vote for everybody in the room, and then the vote will be declared. I think it's the quietest full council I've ever known. Yeah. Right, I'll ask Jane to read the results of the vote, please.
We have 14 for councillor Kelly Pettit and 14 for councillor Christine Whelan. Therefore, it is a tie.
It is a tie. Thank you, members. The vote is tied with an equal number of votes for and against. As the chair, that means that I am able to exercise my casting vote. And after consideration, I cast my vote in favour of Kelly Pettit, and therefore Kelly is elected as chair of the council. Well done, congratulations to Kelly. I now invite councillor Pettit to come forward, read and sign the declaration of acceptance, and there will be a short ceremony of passing over the chain and having some photographs taken. So if members could stand with us, that would be great. So Kelly. I will now ask the new chairman to read the declaration. Thank you.
I, Kelly Pettit, having been elected to the office of the Chair of East Cambridgeshire District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Thank you.
Put it over and stand it.
Thanks.
There you go. So that bit stops it sliding down your neck.
Oh,
Best to
lovely.
put it behind your collar. All right.
Thank you.
So you look good in it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Excuse me. Before continuing, I'd just like to thank Mark Goldsack for his service over the past year. On behalf of the council, I'm pleased to present the past chair's medallion, a commemorative scroll and flowers.
We have another photograph, please.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
Wow.
Come with me.
Right. You okay there?
No jokes.
You're gonna go. That's all he says.
Then let Mark take his seat. Mark, did you want to say a few words?
If, yeah, that would be much appreciated. So 2 years of Chair of Council. I am so grateful and honoured to have had the opportunity to chair the council and to have my name on the board. There are a number of reasons for my pride, including some of the following. To attend the numerous services and events, including a fascinating and eye-opening evening with St John's Ambulance just last week, is a pleasure. To witness the majesty from the front row of the Armistice Day service in the cathedral with my wife beside me and the silence as the poppies fall will never leave me. To have led the sometimes fractious, often friendly council with a smile and an open approach that has seen all parties return to the table. And to jump to the last reason, to join my now past friend and ex-school teacher, Mike Rouse, on the board as chair of East Cams. I would like to thank all members for the support and help received, all officers for the direction and assistance, and members of the public and press for their involvement when and wherever that has been. I would also like to pass my personal thank you to my Vice Chairman, David Brown, a more than able deputy. Cheers, David. I owe a particular thanks to Lynn and Jane for looking after me during the period, and for John for his wisdom. To Tracy and now Jane and the team in Democratic Services for the excellent job they've done and will continue to do. Finally, I set out as chair to follow the LGA debate not hate approach and to find harmony when that was possible. I'm grateful to all of you for largely helping me achieve those goals. I wish the new chair and vice every success and rest easy knowing that they have the right support in place to succeed. It is an honour to represent this area as a member, an honour to serve. To do so in the senior position will stay a treasured memory of mine. I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any other councillors that would like to say any words of thanks? Hannah?
Thank you. Yes, I would just like to say a few words. And looking up at the board there, I can see so many names of friends and colleagues from the past, and it is truly an honour to have your name up there, Mark. And it feels a little bit like Wimbledon because the name is there, but not yet the date. It's obviously a great responsibility taking the chair of a council, large or small, but of course it's also a massive honour. I think Mark has carried out his duties with fairness and good humour and much aplomb for 2 years. And thank you for your attendance at all those many events, some of which I've seen you at, and openings, which I know you've thoroughly enjoyed it, haven't you? You've been out and about all over the place, and I know it's been gratefully received and thoroughly enjoyed. So Mark, thank you for your service. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Anybody else? Councillor Dupre?
Thank you. I won't detain a long meeting longer than necessary, other than to say thank you very much, Councillor Goldsack, for your years of service as chair of this council. Mostly, you have been a fair chair of this meeting, and I'd like to thank you very much indeed for that. And I'm very grateful indeed for what you have done and the service you have given in that role. I think you've done it generally in an exemplary way, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. Was there anyone else? No. In that case, we move on to agenda item 5, which is the election of vice chair for the municipal year 25-26. Councillor Keith Horgan has been proposed by Councillor Anna Bailey and seconded by Councillor Julia Huffer. Does the proposer wish to make a short statement in support of their nomination?
Very briefly, thank you very much, Chair. Really, I'm just very pleased to propose Councillor Keith Horgan. He's a real stickler for detail, challenges me often on lots of detail, and I do think he'll make an excellent vice chairman. So very pleased to propose him.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Gareth Wilson has also been proposed by Councillor Christine Whelan and seconded by, sorry, I apologise, Gareth Wilson, proposed by Councillor Christine Whelan, seconded by Councillor Christine Colbert. Does the proposer wish to make a short statement in support of their nomination?
Happy to propose Councillor Gareth Wilson as vice chair. He's had a wealth of experience on the councils and various councils, and I think that he will make an excellent vice chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan.
Chair, if I may, the visitors in the room are saying they're struggling to hear. Could we all just
Sorry.
lean a little bit closer to our mics and just project a little bit louder, please? Thank you.
Apologies, thank you. Sorry, was that too close? I'm new at this, we'll get there. We'll now proceed to a vote by secret ballot. I'm going to hand this over to Jane and Patrick. Thank you.
In a second.
I think Penny just stalled, my feet won't touch the ground. No. And then I can't get close. Thank you.
Remember.
Yes. The result is 14 for councillor Gareth Wilson and 14 for councillor Keith Horgan. So that's a tie.
Members, the result of the vote is tied. With an equal number of votes for and against, I am able to exercise my casting vote. After consideration, I cast my vote in favour of Keith Horgan. Therefore, Keith is now elected Vice Chair of the Council. I'm sorry.
Yeah, can I just raise a point of order? You use the same wording as the outgoing chair used, votes for and against. I personally didn't vote against you, nor did I vote against councillor Horgan. I voted for councillor Whelan and councillor Wilson. So I object to that phrasing.
We'll revise.
Thank you, councillor Kane. It's a fair point. We'll look at that. I now invite councillor Horgan to come forward to read and sign the declaration and acceptance of office.
Hopefully people can hear me. I, Keith Horgan, having been elected to the office of Vice Chair of East Cambridgeshire District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. This declaration was made and signed before me. That's over to you.
And before we continue, I'd just like to take a moment to thank Councillor David Brown for his service as Vice Chair over the past year. Are there any councillors that would like to say a few words? Councillor Bailey.
Really briefly, thank you. David, thank you so much for your excellent support to Councillor Mark Goldsack in your role as Vice Chairman. Your knowledge of the rules is absolutely second to none, and you've carried your role out calmly and quietly, but with great assuredness, as always. And thank you so much for your services over a very, very long time to the district, but specifically for the last couple of years as well. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else that wanted to say a few words to Councillor Brown? Councillor Dupree.
Thank you. In view of the microphones, I'll remain seated and try to make myself heard that way, just to thank David for his service in that role. It's a very important duty that one carries out as chair or vice chair of a council, and I'd very much like to pay my respects to David for having carried that out so faithfully for the last couple of years. So thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. We now move on to agenda item 6, which is declarations of interest. Are there any members who wish to declare or disclose any pecuniary interests or other interests in any items on the agenda? Councillor Kane.
Yes, following the advice we had from the district solicitor at the last meeting, I'm going to declare an interest on item 11. I'll stay and listen, but I won't speak and I won't vote on the grounds that I get to vote on this matter in another place.
Thank you, Councillor Kane.
Yes, please, Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Chair, I don't have a declaration of interest, but what I would like is the monitoring officer to spell out the rules regarding declaration of interest, please.
Okay, bear with me 1 second.
Is there any specific interests that you wish? Because I could be here all night, sort of explaining pecuniary interests and
Please,
various.
please, I'd like you to, we're making an announcement that we have no declarations of interest to make.
Yeah.
And I think we should go through and make sure that we all understand what we're actually saying.
As councillors, through you, Chair, each councillor should actually be looking at each item in certainly back referencing against the Constitution and deciding for themselves what interests they have. So I can only give general information, but it is for each individual councillor to decide whether they need to make that relevant declaration of interest.
Are there any other declarations? No. Then we move on to agenda item 7, minutes of the previous meeting, 25th of February and the 20th of March, which are included in the papers. And I'm going to take these one at a time. I'm going to take that the 25th of February minutes are agreed as correct record. Is everyone in agreement? Councillor Hunt?
I'm sorry, Chair, thank you, but I'm sorry I'm having a bit of difficulty hearing your speaking. So I assume we are now on minutes, item number 7. Well, if you'd be so kind as to go to page number 9, the 4th paragraph down, where I made comments about parking of boats and cars. Clearly, I wouldn't have said, and I remember it, and I didn't say residents would be grateful for parking or mooring of boats, but visitors would. So I'd like to change, with your consent, Chair, the word residents and put visitors instead.
Yep, okay. Noted, thank you. Are there any others? No. So we look at the minutes for the 20th of March. Are we all happy to agree that they are a correct record? Yep, thank you. Agenda item 8, we move on to the Streatham by-election result. I'm pleased to officially acknowledge the by-election of Councillor Lee Denny at the District Council for Streatham Ward following the recent by-election. Welcome to the Council. Move on to agenda item 9, Chair's announcements. I would like to just remind members about the 2 local government reorganisation seminars scheduled for next week, Tuesday the 27th and Thursday the 29th. If you've not yet informed the Democratic Services of your chosen seminar, please could you let them know as soon as possible. I also had another announcement. As members will be aware, our Section 151 officer, Ian Smith, has announced his retirement. Over his many years of service, Ian has overseen some of the best financial management in the country. Ian has managed the finances of the council and overseen delivery of some large-scale projects without having to borrow, which has been put the residents of East Cambs in good stead. We're incredibly grateful to him for his service over many years, and I know that all members will wish to join me in wishing him a long and very happy retirement. Agenda item 10, petitions. Are there any petitions to present to council? Thank you. We move to agenda item 11, notice of motions under procedure rule 10. We have received a motion under the procedure rule 10 regarding the roles of councillors in planning applications. Do we have a proposer?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to propose motion as written.
Okay, and do you have a seconder? Councillor Hunt, and do you wish to reserve your right?
Yes, I reserve my right to speak, Chair.
Councillor Vellacott.
Well, thank you, Chair. I will, if you'll permit me, just make a couple of congratulations. I wish to congratulate Councillor Denny on his election. I look forward to working with him, both county councillors covering my patch. And I wish to congratulate you on your election. I know that you're the best person to understand and respect this council. I'm very proud of you, and to Councillor Organ as well on his election as Vice Chair. And thanks to Ian for his many years of service. Every word that was said, I agreed with. So, members, turning to the motion as altered, it is impossible to know how many good developments would be missing or how many bad developments would be present without a little function called the member call-in. And the government wants to give ministers the authority to decide which applications this applies to in an effort to streamline the service. Now, obviously, I advocate efficient services for local people wherever that's possible. But I ask myself, why is planning so complex? Because there are a huge number of competing issues, which local councillors are obviously best placed to determine. And a very wise member of our planning team actually said to me, a good analogy, planning officers are for the land, you, councillors, are for the people. And our planning team are absolutely first class, but their job is the land. As councillors, we oversee a combination of the land and the people. And so that often involves a judgment call, which would be wrong to ask anybody else to make. You know, it's not just large housing, which affects local interest. I called in an application recently for battery storage outside Wycombe, and that's just because I want educated and concerned local people to be able to have a say via their councillors, whichever way that ends up going. But under the government's plans, that would be too minor to have a say in at all. And then at the other end of the scale, you know, large housing could be called in by the mayor under new powers. And what impact would councillors have? I don't think that's right. It might even be impractical. You know, ministers aren't going to care about a few batteries outside Wycombe, but that affects a huge number of lives and huge amounts of land very significantly. And I expect to be served by proactive ministers, obviously, but I don't expect them to have that level of detail. So look, this motion achieves three things. It's never going to solve everything, but it offers our constructive engagement about what works, because I think we do that very well at this council. It commissions a review into how East Cam's local councillors can help to decide applications should this legislation be enacted, and it continues to commit us to supporting our exceptional parish councils with their neighbourhood plans. Obviously, who knows where local government reorganisation is going, right? But what we do know is that they will still be there. And they need a say, they deserve a say in the kind of development and infrastructure they get. It's coming, development's coming, so we ought not be voiceless. We ought to set up our residents as best we can while we can. This motion's not going to change everything. I appreciate that, but I hope it will continue to give our residents a hope that they're not shouting into a void, which many of them feel they might be in terms of planning. We are listening, development's coming, and we want it to be right for East Cambridgeshire. So I think this motion shows them we're trying to proactively find a way through, despite the ever-changing national picture. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Vellacott. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Inskip?
So, thank you, Chair. So my colleagues and I strongly support maintaining democratic oversight of planning and through councillors and the local communities that we work with. And we've been enthusiastic supporters of neighbourhood plans because of the way that it engages and involves our local communities. My parish was the first in the district to embark on the neighbourhood plan process. And it's very pleasing over a decade later to see how many neighbourhood plans we now have in place across the district. But the government bill that effectively we're referring to here before Parliament threatens that democratic oversight and the involvement that councillors have in representing their communities. There are other concerns as well in terms of whether that bill will maintain the current environmental protections. And to that end, I know that that my colleague and her colleagues in Parliament have proposed amendments to that bill and didn't support it at the second reading. Not all parties opposed that, but in particular, Liberal Democrat MPs proposed an amendment to leave clause 46 of the bill in its entirety. And I think this is one that we really need to be aware of as local councillors, because this is the clause that delegates power away from local councils and local councillors to their planning officers. And what it effectively does is it gives unlimited power to the Secretary of State to make recommendations that prescribe relevant functions which will by regulation be removed from councillors and determined by employees of the council. So council staff will effectively be working at the direction of the Secretary of State and potentially in opposition, certainly with no involvement from local councillors. And that clause would remove both councillors' involvement, but also our local communities that we represent. And it will give the current Secretary of State and any future ministers power to continue to take away those decisions, and it's not something for that reason we can support. And so I'm certainly welcome the motion from Councillor Vellacott. I'm more than happy to support that and to continue to push and campaign for the continued local oversight of planning matters through local councillors and the involvement of our local communities.
Are there any other speakers before we invite the second? Councillor Huffer?
Just very quickly, I think Fordham was actually the first neighbourhood plan.
We finished. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, Mark.
Councillor Goldsack.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to keep this very short. I think when you're elected, I heard a phrase a minute ago and that resonated. Our planning officers who do a fine job are there for the land. We are here to represent the people. And I think there are times when only that local knowledge, and particularly that local knowledge of the people, really comes into play. And that's what the calling is there for, as a backstop protection for unwanted and ill-advised planning decisions. So I wholeheartedly support this. I welcome the support from the other side of the room. And what I would be grateful for is if we can do anything that takes decisions like Sonica away from the Secretary of State. Thank you.
Any other speakers? No. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair, and a big thank to Councillor Inskip for coming, agreeing with this. Mind you, on the other hand, it is common sense, so I would have expected him to. But thank you and appreciate it. I think the Planning Committee, as it exists now, really does an excellent job. And it's obvious, isn't it? If you've got 24 eyes looking at an application, you're more likely to get a sensible answer than if you have 2 or 4 eyes looking at it. So I think from a point of view of the spread of ages, life experience and political thoughts are really helpful to getting sensible results. And although sometimes I've wondered what I'm doing here, I very often come away thinking that's a good thing we've done today. And the fact is the current system works. Members have local knowledge, which is of course very important. And also, I wonder if you had a great big area, and I've experienced the planning committee at the county council, your bus trip in the morning doesn't work. And I think the bus trip in the morning, where the members go out and look at the application sites, is particularly helpful. And I think the fact that the planning committee deals with big things and small things with equal microscopic attention, I think it's really something which should be retained. I think we have 1 or 2 people, and I can speak from experience, who are really analytical about the applications we get. And it's all to the benefit of the public. And it's really sad to me that we may be losing this really useful service to the public. I do have some hope with the new mayor we have, and I hope he will introduce, he'll have a great difficulty introducing more common sense than the previous mayor, so he's got to be on a winner, really, hasn't he? I can't believe that a large unitary authority serving 500,000 people can do anything like as good a job as where we do at the present, which is about 80,000 people. So in my view, the current system is better, it's more informed and more understanding. We need local members to be involved with local issues, and villages need help from the East Cams in preparing their plans. I've now had confirmation, but thank you for the Lib Dems with their vote of confidence. And can we have a recorded vote, please? So it's clear, unless there is an affirmation of unanimous.
Councillor Miller, I'm going to allow you to speak.
Thank you, Chair. It's something that Councillor Hunt just said prompted me to say this. Officers who work for the council under the delegated powers Councillor Inskip just mentioned are appointed and employed by the council and are not democratically elected. And to my mind, that means that they have less discretion to consider applications because they must strictly consider them in line with the prevailing policies. And so it seems to me that the role of elected members, and I do mean all of us here, can and should, when appropriate, exercise discretion because we are accountable to the public every 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. And just to remind you all that if anyone wishes to speak, if they can indicate before the seconder has spoken. Thank you. Councillor Vellacott, did you want to sum up there?
Yeah, of course, happy to. I want to really thank all members for their contributions. I want to really thank Councillor Inskiv. You know, it's not every day we're on the same page, but he has a wealth of experience, and I'm glad to have seen his insight into the clauses of the bill. And thanks to Councillor Hunt, I particularly took note of what he mentioned about all applications being equal. Absolutely right. You know, whether it's a couple of batteries or a single house or a large-scale housing development, that's absolutely how it should be. We have to focus more on neighbourhood planning. That's for certain, because we know that that's what's going to continue afterwards, and also on keeping local councillors involved in decision making before, but also even after local government reorganisation. So I'm glad to see agreement across the chamber. I'm sure the rest of tonight will be exactly the same.
Firstly, apologies. Apparently, I need to use my mum voice a little bit. So if you still can't hear me, just raise your hand. Councillor Hunt had asked for a recorded vote, but it's looking like it's going to be unanimous. Would everybody like a recorded vote, or are you happy just for a show of hands?
Chair, I only asked for a recorded vote unless there was unanimous
Okay.
support in the room.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. May I ask then we'll go to a vote with a show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Unanimous? Thank you. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Thank you.
We now move on to agenda item 12, questions from members. We've received one from Councillor Wade for the Leader of the Council. Councillor Wade, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. Illegal on-street parking continues to be raised by residents in Ely and East Cambridgeshire as a problem. In my first council meeting, I raised this question on behalf of my residents and received positive news from the Leader of the Council in terms of a plan for police enforcement role to tackle the issue. This has been confirmed to residents through an article written by the Leader on the East Cambridgeshire Conservative Group website with the title "A New Police Enforcement Role to Tackle Illegal Car Parking and Speeding in East Cambs" in 2022. Further reassurance was provided a year later in 2023 when a council spokesperson told the Ely Standard that East Cambridgeshire District Council has been developing the new road safety officer volunteer role with the county's police force to address issues such as speeding and parking enforcement. 18 months after that update provided to the residents via the Ely Standard and following positive progress reports to members in this council chamber following questions from myself and Councillor Vellacott, is Leader of the Council still confident that the new road safety officers will prove effective in addressing illegal on-street parking in the district? In particular, can she confirm, 1, the number of applicants to the expressions of interest run by the police last autumn, 2, the number of road safety officer volunteers who have completed their training, and 3, the number of parking penalty tickets issued by road safety volunteers?
Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Wade for the question, which provides me with a very timely opportunity to give an update. I am, of course, aware that the Liberal Democrat and independent members of this council would like to spend East Cambs residents' money bringing in civil parking enforcement, or CPE as it's known, to deal with the incredibly annoying issue of illegal on-street parking in our district. However, as I've previously stated in this chamber, on-street parking enforcement is, of course, the responsibility of police in East Cambridgeshire. And the only authority that can take on the decriminalisation of on-street parking enforcement is, of course, the Highways Authority, and that's Cambridgeshire County Council. And given that Councillor Dupre is now Deputy Leader of the County Council, and my very sincere congratulations to her, on her appointment to that role. The County Council is, of course, now run solely by the Liberal Democrats as the administration. Of course, Councillor Dupre is now free to pursue civil parking enforcement via the only authority in Cambridgeshire that's allowed by law to take on civil parking enforcement. So our Lib Dem and independent colleagues here in East Cambs District Council may want to pursue that with Councillor Dupre. I am absolutely as disappointed as Councillor Wade that the promised pilot from Cambridgeshire Police has not been forthcoming yet, and share the concern about the ongoing abuse of on-street parking in hotspots in our district. I've regularly pushed the police for progress on this matter, including very recently. Of course, they are not in my control. I unfortunately have very little sway in the police force. But I'm pleased to say that responsibility for this has now been taken over by Superintendent Adam Gallop, who is acutely aware of the issues and local concerns on this subject. I met with Superintendent Gallop here at the Grange on the 16th of May, I think that was just last week, to discuss the matter at what was an incredibly positive meeting. Cambridgeshire Police have now got a record number of police constables in place and are recruiting more PCSOs. And Superintendent Gallop has therefore proposed an alternative way of dealing with the illegal parking issues in our district, which is music to my ears. And it's something that this council suggested to the police many, many years ago, not in fact all that long after I joined this council, which is way back in 2007. And it's an alternative way of dealing with the illegal parking issues in our district. And he's promised to submit a proposal to the council very soon. This would be a very straightforward increase in police resource to deal with the matter of on-street parking enforcement, which, if agreed, can be stood up very quickly. So I'm hopeful that this will finally improve the situation. And of course, this doesn't preclude Councillor Dupre pursuing the introduction of civil parking enforcement that she so longed for in her new leadership role at the County Council, which I would suggest could be run under a similar model to that of South Cambridgeshire District Council, where the County Council has taken on all responsibility for enforcement in the villages of South Cambs with no involvement by the District Council whatsoever.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey.
I'm afraid I don't think that answered my question. So my question being, is the leader of the council still confident that the new road safety officers will prove effective in addressing illegal on-street parking? I think what you've done is provide reassurance around a different scheme, potentially. So if we could just clarify.
Through you, Chair, I'm content that I've answered the question.
Thank you. We'll move on. Agenda item 13, which is the appointment of political groups, leaders and deputies. Group leaders and deputies are for noting by the council. I will take the nominations for leader of council first. Councillor Bailey has been proposed by Councillor Huffer and seconded by Councillor Vellacott. Does the proposer wish to make a short statement in support of their candidate?
Thank you, Chair. Anna Bailey has led this council since 2019. With unwavering commitment and a steely determination to ensure that services and facilities remain available to all our residents. She's already begun the thorny issue of local government reorganisation, and she continues to have the full support of our group. I'm happy to nominate her.
Thank you, Councillor Huffer. We also have Councillor Dupre, who's been proposed by Councillor Wilson and seconded by Councillor Inskip. Does the proposer wish to make a short statement in support of their candidate?
Thank you, Chair. I think as we've now got a totally balanced council with the same number of representatives on either side, it is a good opportunity to make a change. And therefore, I'm very pleased to support Councillor Lorna Dupre as the leader of the council, and hope that, knowing that she would do an excellent job in this role.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. We will now go to the vote. Those in favour of Councillor Anna Bailey, please raise your hands. Can everyone keep their hands raised? Thank you. And those in favour of Councillor Dupre, please raise their hands. Members, the result of the vote is tied. I'm able to exercise my casting vote and I cast my vote in favour of Councillor Anna Bailey. Councillor Bailey is therefore elected leader of the council. I will now take nominations for the deputy leader. Councillor Huffer has been proposed by Councillor Bailey and seconded by Councillor Vellacott. Does the proposer wish to make a short statement in support of their candidate?
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly to say, I'm enormously grateful for Councillor Huffer's deputy leadership. I think we've worked really, really well together, and she's been a huge support to me and carried out the duty incredibly well, and works so closely with all members of our group. And I think, you know, in her other roles, works across the chamber. So I'm very, very pleased and proud to have her as my deputy, and I hope that she'll be able to continue.
Thank you. Councillor Christine Whelan has been proposed by Councillor Wilson and seconded by Councillor Inskip. Does the proposer wish to make a short statement in support of their candidate?
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to propose Councillor Christine Whelan as the deputy leader because she has proved herself to be excellent in running the area and that she's been responsible for. And I hope that we would not necessarily have to have one party running both jobs.
Thank you. We'll now go to the vote. Those in favour of Councillor Huffer, please raise your hands. And can I ask that you keep them raised? Thank you. And those in favour of Councillor Christine Whelan, please may you raise your hand and keep them raised.
14.
Thank you. Members, the result of the vote is tied. I am going to exercise my casting vote and I vote in favour of Julia Huffer. Therefore, Councillor Huffer is elected the deputy leader of the council. We now move on to agenda item 14, the political proportionality, and our Democratic Services and Elections Manager, Jane Webb, will present the report. Jane.
Thank you, Chair. This report outlines the political proportionality for the council, which remains unchanged since it was agreed upon at the Extraordinary Council last year. The report is for noting unless an alternative is agreed, but this would require a NEMCON vote. Thank you, Chair.
Are members happy to note the report? Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 15. This is the membership of committees, subcommittees and other bodies. This report requires a proposer and a seconder to approve the membership and the amendment to the Constitution as outlined in the report. Can I have a proposer, please?
Pleased to move the motion.
Councillor Bailey. And a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
And do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Our Democratic Services Manager, Jane, I'll pass it to you to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to approve the membership of committees, subcommittees and other member bodies for the upcoming year as detailed in the report. Additionally, it seeks to confirm the reappointment of the lay member Stephen Joyce to the Audit Committee. Section 2.2 proposes an amendment to the Constitution to ensure an equal distribution of seats on subcommittees that were not subject to the political ruling from last December, aligning them with the other committees. Furthermore, the council is requested to approve the reappointments of 2 independent members and 2 co-opted town parish councillors to the Finance and Assets Ethical Governance Subcommittee as detailed in the appendix. Just as the appendix was, since the appendix was printed, we've also had an update that is on the table before you, but since then, Councillor Lee Denny has been added to the Licensing Committee as a full member and to the Licensing Subcommittee statutory as a substitute. This is to fulfil the Liberal Democrat and Independent membership. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Jane? No? Open it up to debate. Does anyone have anything they wish to add?
Just in proposing it, just to say a massive thank you to everybody for their service on all the committees. I'm really proud of our committee system. I think it's everybody, you know, a role. And I know that, you know, it asks a lot of members to take part. And I also want to thank, our lay member of the Audit Committee, Stephen Joyce, and our independent persons and people externally. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? No. Councillor Huffer?
Nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey, do you wish to sum up? No. We move to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
Unanimous.
Unanimous? Wonderful. Thank you very much. We now move on to agenda item 16, which is the election of committee chairs and vice chairs. Now we're going to take each committee one at a time. This might be a little bit time consuming, so just bear with us on this, please. We're going to start with Finance and Assets Committee. Can I have a nomination for chair?
I'd like to propose Councillor Alan Sharp.
Are there any other nominations? Councillor Dupre?
Chair for Finance and Assets, I'd like to nominate Councillor Alison Whelan.
Alison Whelan, thank you. We'll move to the vote on that. Could all those in favour of Councillor Sharp, please raise their hand. And all of those in favour of Councillor Whelan, please raise their hands. Sorry, Alison.
That's 14 either side.
Okay, well, with an equal number of votes, I will exercise my right for a casting vote and I will be voting for Councillor Sharp. We now move on to Vice Chair. Are there any nominations for Vice Chair?
I'd like to propose Councillor Ian Bovingdon.
Do you have a seconder? Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Alison Whelan.
Do you have your seconder? Councillor Trapp? This is Vice Chair. Yes, it's Vice Chair. Yeah.
To the vote, if everyone's clear.
We move to the vote. All those in favour of Councillor Ian Bovingdon? And all those in favour of Councillor Alison Whelan?
14.
Thank you. As the vote is tied, to break the deadlock, I will use my casting vote and I will be voting for Councillor Ian Bovingdon. We now move to Operational Services Committee. Can I have a nomination for chair, please?
Delighted to propose Councillor Julia Huffer.
And a seconder?
Happy to second that nomination, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations?
Well, your Michael.
I think it was.
So sorry. I'd like to nominate Councillor Markin Skip.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder? Councillor Dupre. We move to the vote. All those in favour of Councillor Huffer, please raise their hands. And all of those in favour of Councillor Inskip.
14.
The vote is tied. I will use my vote to break the deadlock. I will be voting for Councillor, excuse me, sorry, it was all timed, Huffer. Can I have a nomination for Vice Chair, please?
Propose Councillor Lucius Velicott.
And a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. And do we have any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Markin Skip.
And do you have a seconder? We now take the vote for the Vice Chair. All those in favour of councillor Lucius Vellicott?
14.
Sorry, and councillor Inskip?
14.
That's a tie. I will now use my casting vote to break the deadlock, and I will be voting for councillor Vellicott. We now move on to Audit Committee. Can I have a nomination for chair?
I would like to propose councillor David Brown.
And do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Any other nominations?
Yes, I'd like to propose councillor Lorna Dupre.
And do you have a seconder? Councillor Kane. We'll move to the vote. All those in favour of councillor Brown, please raise their hands.
14.
And all of those in favour of councillor Dupre, please raise their hands.
14.
That's now tied. I'll use my casting vote to break the deadlock, and I will be voting for councillor Brown. We now move on to the Vice Chair of Audit Committee. Do I have a nomination?
I'd like to propose councillor Lucius Vellicott.
Do you have a seconder?
Second, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations?
Yes, I'd like to propose councillor Lorna Dupre.
Thank you. Seconder? We move to the vote. All those in favour of councillor Vellicott, please raise their hands.
14.
And all in favour of councillor Lorna Dupre.
14.
The vote is tied. I will use my casting vote to break the deadlock. I will be voting with councillor Vellicott. We now move on to Licensing Committee. Do we have a nomination for chair?
I'd like to propose councillor Julia Huffer.
And do you have a seconder?
I'd like to second, Chair.
And do we have any other nominations?
Nominate councillor John Trapp.
John Trapp. And do you have a seconder? We move to the vote. All those in favour of councillor Huffer? No, it's fine.
14.
Thank you. And for councillor Trapp?
14.
The vote is tied. I will use my casting vote to break the deadlock, and I will be voting with councillor Huffer. We now move on to the Vice Chair of Licensing Committee. Do we have a nomination for Vice Chair?
I'd like to propose councillor Martin Goodall.
And do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Do we have any other nominations? John Trapp. And do you have a seconder? We move to the vote. All in favour of councillor Goodall, please raise your hand.
14.
And all in favour of councillor Trapp.
14.
We have a tie. I'll be using my vote to break the deadlock, and I will be voting with councillor Goodall. We move on to planning. May I have a nomination for chair?
I'd like to propose councillor Bill Hunt.
And do you have a second?
Happy to second, Chair.
Do we have another nomination for chair?
Councillor Christine Whelan.
And do you have a second? We move to the vote. All those in favour of councillor Hunt, please raise their hand.
14.
And all of those in favour of councillor Christine Whelan.
14.
The vote is tied. I will be using my casting vote to break the deadlock, and I will be voting for councillor Bill Hunt. We now move to the Vice Chair of Planning Committee. Do we have a nomination?
I'd like to propose councillor Mark Goldsack.
And do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Do we have any other nominations?
Councillor Christine Whelan.
And do you have a seconder? Thank you. We move to the vote. All those in favour of councillor Goldsack, please raise their hand.
14.
And all of those in favour of councillor Christine Whelan, please raise their hand.
14.
We once again have a tie, and I will be using my casting vote to break the deadlock. I will be voting for councillor Goldsack. We move on to the Personal Appeals Subcommittee. May I have a nomination for chair?
I'd like to propose councillor Alan Sharp.
And do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Do we have another nomination?
I'd like to propose councillor Christine Colbert.
And a seconder? We'll move to the vote. All those in favour of councillor Alan Sharp, please raise their hand.
14.
And all those in favour of councillor Christine Colbert, please raise their hand.
14.
We once again have a tie. I will use my casting vote to break the deadlock, and I will vote with councillor Sharp. May I have a nomination for vice chair?
I'd like to propose councillor Ian Bovingdon.
And do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
And do we have any other nominations?
Councillor Christine Colbert.
And do you have a seconder? We move to the vote for vice chair. All those in favour of councillor Ian Bovingdon, please raise their hand.
14.
And all in favour of councillor Christine Colbert.
14.
Thank you. We now have a tie. I will be using my casting vote, sorry, to break the deadlock, and I will be voting for councillor Bovingdon. We move to F&A, Ethical Governance and Subcommittee. Do we have a nomination for chair?
I'd like to propose councillor Alan Sharp.
And do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
And do we have any other nominations?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just so shocked at the proposal of councillor Sharp. I lost track of things. Councillor Alison Whelan.
And do you have a seconder?
You.
We move to the vote. All in favour of councillor Sharp, please raise their hands.
14.
And all of those in favour of councillor Alison Whelan.
14.
The vote is tied. I will therefore use my casting vote to break the deadlock, and I will be voting with councillor Sharp. May I have a nomination for vice chair?
I'd like to propose councillor Ian Bovingdon.
And do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Any other nominations?
Councillor Alison Whelan.
And do you have a seconder? Thank you. We move to the vote. All those in favour of councillor Ian Bovingdon, please raise their hand.
14.
And all those in favour of councillor Alison Whelan, please raise their hand.
14.
We have a tie. Are we using my casting vote to break the deadlock? And I will be voting with councillor Bovingdon. We now move to the Licensing Subcommittee Statutory. Do we have a nomination for chair?
I'd like to propose councillor Keith Horgan.
And do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Do we have any other nominations?
Councillor John Trapp.
And do you have a seconder? We move to the vote. All those in favour of Keith Horgan, please raise their hands.
14.
And all in favour of councillor John Trapp, please raise their hand.
14.
We have a tie. I will be using my casting vote to break the deadlock, and I will be voting for councillor Horgan. We move to the vice chair. Do I have a nomination?
Thank you, councillor Lavinia Edwards.
And do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Do we have another nomination?
Councillor John Trapp.
And do you have a seconder? We move to the vote. All those in favour of councillor Lavinia Edwards, please raise her hand.
14.
And all of those in favour of councillor John Trapp, please raise their hands.
14.
We once again have a tie. I will be using my casting vote to break the deadlock, and I will be voting with councillor Lavinia Edwards. We now move to licensing subcommittee, the non-statutory. May I have a nomination for chair?
Like to propose councillor Martin Goodall.
Do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Do we have any other nominations?
Councillor John Trapp.
And do you have a seconder? Thank you. We move to the vote. All in favour of councillor Goodall, please raise their hand.
14.
And councillor John Trapp.
14.
We have a tie. I will be using my casting vote to break the deadlock, and I will be voting for councillor Martin Goodall. Do we have a nomination for vice chair?
I'd like to propose councillor Julia Huffer.
And do you have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. Any other nominations?
Councillor John Trapp.
And do you have a seconder? We move to the vote. All those in favour of councillor Julia Huffer?
14.
And all of those in favour of councillor John Trapp?
14.
We have a tie. I will be using my casting vote to break the deadlock, and I will be voting with councillor Huffer. Thank you, everyone. That was a bit of a long one. We now move on to agenda item 17. Asking for the council to approve the Audit Committee Annual Report 24 to 25 from the Audit Committee on the 15th of April 2025 as set out in the agenda. Can I have a proposer
Happy to propose, Chair.
and a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair, and reserve my right.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, would you like to say a few words as the chair of the Audit Committee?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it just got a few words. It's my pleasure to present this annual report of the work of the Audit Committee for 2024-25. I'd like to start by thanking all members of the committee who have contributed to the work over the year. And I'd particularly like to thank Stephen Joyce, our independent lay member, for his invaluable contributions and advice. Thank you also to officers and our internal and external auditors for all your work in supporting the committee. At the request of the committee, I would just like to highlight the detailed discussions we have in meetings, including consideration of the council's major risks as detailed on the risk register. I'd also like to stress that the disclaimed audit report the council received is because of national issues and is well outside the control of us as a council. And that, I'm afraid to say, will continue for another couple of years at least. I would also like to highlight that whilst the report from internal audit for 2023-24 showed only 83% of actions implemented on time, Audit Committee is pleased to confirm that work has resulted in only one outstanding action, which relates to 2024-25 and will be actioned by the end of this year. I commend this annual report of the Audit Committee to Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Does anyone have any questions? No. I open it up for debate. Does anyone have anything they would like to add? No. Keith, did you want to sum up there?
Well,
Sorry.
yes, thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd just like to echo Councillor Brown's words on the brilliant introduction of the independent layperson, Stephen Joyce. He's added a dimension to our questioning, basically on the results of the fact that he used to be a finance officer in the past, and that obviously shows in our meetings. I'd like also to echo the comments of Councillor Brown, who is the chair of the Audit Committee. And I'd like to also say that I am particularly glad of the return of the Liberal Democrats to the Audit Committee. They were missed for the period of time of about a year or more when they were unable to attend. But I'm glad to welcome them back now, because it's important that the function of the Audit Committee produces a balanced review of our operations to make sure that we are fit for purpose. In closing, I'd like to just add my own personal thanks to Councillor David Brown in the way that he has led the Audit Committee. He has been exemplary, and one or two of you may know me as the sort of person that asks the occasional difficult question. And I am able to say that the response that I've received from David Brown as chair of the Audit Committee has been exemplary in terms of answering my detailed questions, and I thank him for that. And I hope that that continues for the remainder of this council, for however many years that is. Thank you.
Councillor Brown?
Nothing to add, Chair.
Thank you. In that case, we move to the vote. All those in favour to approve the Audit Committee's annual report, may please raise their hands. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. I think if it's okay with everyone else, I might like to call a small comfort break, so we can just have a few minutes after all that. I just want to remind you that we do have members of the public here, so I'm going to call it for 10 minutes. Can I have everyone back promptly at 8 o'clock, please? Welcome back, everyone. Thank you all for returning so promptly. We now move on to agenda item 18, which is the Bereavement Centre budget. Item 18 is asking for the council to approve the Bereavement Centre budget report as set out on the agenda and the 2 exempt appendices. May I have a proposer?
I would love to propose this. Thank you, Chair.
And do we have a seconder?
Very happy to second, Chair.
And would you like to reserve your rights?
I would like to reserve my right. Thank you.
I now ask Isabel Edgar, would you like to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So the council approved the full business case for the Bereavement Centre in February 2024. Since this time, a project team has finalised the technical design of the building and landscape and undertaken the necessary surveys to get the project ready for tendering. Progress of the project has been reported to Finance and Assets Committee on a quarterly basis since that time, and further updates have been provided through member briefings. The tendering exercise has now been completed, a preferred contractor has been selected, and the project costs have been updated, all of which is detailed in your reports. Therefore, please see recommendations in section 2.1 A through to E for final consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Isabel. Now, I note that there are 2 exempt appendices associated with this report. If we can discuss this report without referencing any information from the exempt papers, we can continue in an open session. Does anyone wish to talk about the exempt appendices at this stage? No. We move on to questions to Isabel. Does anyone have any questions? No. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I want to start by saying a massive, huge thank you to the whole team that's put this huge piece of work and project together long into the past, but obviously more recently since we took our decision to go ahead with this project in February 24. And particularly I want to pay massive thanks and tribute to Isabel, who's just added huge expertise and past experience into the mix with this, and it's given me huge confidence about the detail of this project. And this project is just about so much more than just the crematorium. It's about securing, protecting and enhancing a beautiful and much loved and special site for the community now and into the future. The site is absolutely unique. It's a designated wildlife site with nationally important species using it as their home. And we've been working with the Wildlife Trust, who are really pleased with the management plans we've developed. And it's not just an eco-crematorium, it's also about natural burials and the pet cemetery area and woodland walking and lakeside setting. And the residents will be able to enjoy the site for walking and bird watching and fishing, as I mentioned earlier. And the project also includes a separate community function room, and I hope that this will be able to be made available outside of operating hours for community use in the future. For people using the range of bereavement services, this will be a very different experience to that being offered by other crematoria outside of our district. The chapel is in the most beautiful, simple setting, looking out over the lake. People attending services to get to say goodbye to loved ones will have time. There'll be a maximum of 2 services per day, and they can use the function room to have a get together afterwards without having to rush off before the next service arrives. And they'll be able to return to the site to pause and reflect and remember their loved ones into the future. And I really hope and believe that they will do that. The site is in good striking distance for the majority of the population of East Cambridgeshire, most of whom live in Ely, Surham and Littleport. And for the first time, we now have the actual cost of the project. The cost is absolutely comparable with other crematoria that have recently been built. And what matters in this is that the contract we've secured is value for money and we can afford it. Costs have been driven hard through an open book process of line by line cost challenge by our quantity surveyors and through value engineering without compromising on what we're actually building. It's a fixed price contract which offers a high social value. The business case shows that even with competitive pricing, there'll be an income to the council from year 2 of operation to support the rest of the services that this council provides. Our decision to adopt the community infrastructure levy has been incredibly positive for this council and our communities, raising over 35 million to date, with much more to come into the future. SIL is about delivering infrastructure to support growth, and the Bereavement Centre and its associated uses do exactly this. Our district is growing. The council's worked hard to support delivery of numerous local community projects, including new community centres, leisure centres, cycle routes, footbridges, schools, learning hubs, GP surgeries, new and improved roads, sports facilities, land for cemetery, the Viva Theatre in Soham, the Ely Museum upgrade, cycleways, footbridges, Ely Country Park, the list goes on. And nearly 6 million is being passported directly to parish councils to support their projects. We've also got significant funds put aside for other facilities, water and flood management, accessible play equipment and other community assets. And parishes I mentioned earlier also receive SIL for their own projects through the meaningful proportion, 25% in some cases, 15% in others. SIL is mainly, of course, about delivering strategic infrastructure projects like the Southern Bypass, the A14 upgrade, the Leisure Centre, new schools, all of which we have done and will continue to do. The Bereavement Centre is indeed one such strategic project. It's absolutely appropriate for the council to choose to spend some of its SIL funds on this. It's not the case that this will deprive our residents. All projects on our SIL list are capable of being supported through SIL, including this one. 3,000 new homes are being delivered in North Ely alone. There are millions more to come in SIL receipts. Losing a loved one and facing grief is hard. And I believe we've got an amazing opportunity in an incredible setting to support people at a time of need. And I hope this will become a much loved facility that people return to pause and reflect and to remember their loved ones. It's a special place where we hope to provide a special and supportive service to residents in their time of need and bereavement. And I hope everyone will join me in working to make that happen.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. We now open up to the debate. Councillor Inskip.
Thank you, Chair. It should come as no surprise that I oppose the proposals for a crematorium on the site of Meeple Outdoor Centre in the ward I've represented since 2019. Let me explain why, and I first want to look back at the events that got us to where we are today. The secret plans to abandon the reopening of Meeple Outdoor Centre and to instead build a money-making crematorium on the site were first leaked to the Ely Standard in July 2020. It was claimed that the council had been working on plans in secret for at least 6 months, keeping opposition councillors and the public in the dark. It was subsequently revealed that the work on the plans had actually begun a full 18 months earlier in secret. A special council meeting was held on the 31st of July 2020 behind closed doors to discuss the proposals. And then late in the evening, East Cambridgeshire District Council published a public press release announcing the proposals. The first public confirmation that those leaked reports to abandon the reopening of the outdoor centre as a community and leisure facility and to instead build a crematorium were completely true. In January 2021, a public consultation was held, but the results were kept under wraps until August of that year. They were finally published in the Statement of Community Involvement on the East Cambs planning portal in support of the planning application as the council pushed ahead with the plans. That consultation showed a massive 85.4% opposed the plans, with just 13% expressing support. Yet still, the administration pushed on, ignoring residents' views. By early 2022, more than £250,000 had been spent on preparing the planning application and on the demolition work. The council estimated at the time it would need a further 6.54 million to develop the crematorium, leading to a total cost not far short of £7 million. Today, the report before us shows that those total costs have subsequently soared to nearly 13 million, with £2 million already spent. And that £13 million is to come from the council's receipts from the Community Infrastructure Levy, money that is intended to be used to improve local infrastructure and amenities. Do councillors opposite really believe that local residents are demanding a crematorium in preference to better health facilities, school building improvements, footpaths and cycleways, better play areas and improved leisure facilities? Of course, we all know it isn't true, and yet councillors opposite still continue to push through this vanity project. But setting aside the public's opposition and the inappropriate allocation of SIL monies intended to improve local amenities, Does the crematorium project make any business sense? There are already crematoria at Huntingdon, Cambridge, Bury St Edmunds, closer and more convenient for many residents in the village. And Dignity's crematorium in March is just 12 minutes drive from the Meeple site. Cambridge and Peterborough have seen the number of cremations fall annually by hundreds since the opening of the Huntingdon crematorium. Clear evidence, if it wasn't already apparent, that there is excess crematorium capacity in the area. Adding more capacity will drive down fees and income, throwing the Meeple crematorium business case into doubt and risking operating losses to the district council, which would ultimately fall to council taxpayers. This evening, the decision before us is clear. Does the council press ahead with this misguided vanity project, including all the evidence that shows it's a bad idea and rising roughshod over residents' views? Or is it finally time to kill off the proposals and instead work in the best interests of those residents who elect us? And I say to you, Chair, do you want to be remembered at your first council meeting for the person who pushed through this white elephant project on the casting vote, or the person who finally brought the council to its senses?
Thank you, Councillor Inskip. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Horgan?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think there's already been a mention previously by me of my forensic analytic mind and how that's been used occasionally. And I draw the memory of one of my fellow councillors, Councillor Lay, who worked closely with me for best part of 6 months to go through the business case and really satisfy ourselves that it stacked up. And trust me, as I used to sort of pull company reports apart as part of my working life for the best part of 47 years, I have 1 or 2 experiences that I can bring to bear when looking at numbers, spreadsheets, and justifications. I remind myself that on the 20th of February 2024, after completing that forensic analysis, both Councillor Lay and I voted in favour of the Bereavement Centre, and that's why it was passed at that time. I continue to support it, and now that we have firm figures, because I believe that the business case continues to stack up. If it didn't, I would vote against it. I wouldn't need to be reminded by anybody about what residents do or don't want. If it's a good investment for this council, it's a good investment for residents as well, in my opinion. So I will be voting in favour of it, but appreciate that not everybody may agree to that view, but I can assure you that I have been through this with a fine-tooth comb and I remain satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Trapp.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've spoken about this and aired the views of parish councils in my ward, and all of them have said what a ridiculous thing. They would like to see the SIL money being spent on more practical projects. For instance, just to mention 2 of them, the cycleway from Lode to Bottersham. Lode doesn't have any shop, it doesn't have any primary school. If there was a proper good cycle route from one to the other, and it was actually safe, then a lot more children would be traveling by cycle to school. It also, one village we had an accessible play area inspection. I remember the report that we had about accessible play areas. And the village got a report, the parish got, and it said, well, one of the things you really need to make it more accessible is walkways between the various bits of equipment. Well, they can't afford to do that. This is where we ought to be spending money. And this must be true for other village parishes as well, and parish playgrounds. I mean, have other councillors in this chamber actually asked their parish council about what they think about this kind of thing? I don't know. I mean, I certainly have. There's apparently some green credentials here, which I must query. I mean, using an electric car actually doesn't actually save costs. You're still going to produce the energy to move the car. It's just cleaner to do it by electricity rather than by petrol, and probably slightly more efficient. But it still means travel with any means is still an energy absorbing thing. I did last time mention about water cremation as a green alternative. It takes 1/4 of the energy cost to have water cremation. And it's something that is operated, and it would be a really green thing to do. But no, we pursue electric cremation. I also understood that there was an offer of land at Soham in exchange for the Meeple site by someone. Soham, notwithstanding the fact that this cremation, that we don't really need a crematorium, might have been a much better place to have a crematorium in the center of the district. In a sense, I suppose it's rather like poker at the moment, isn't it? That, you know, we put so much into the ante, we're now just we're calling now to saying, shall we take the pot? Shall we put more money in? Shall we put more good money in to follow the money already there? Or is it going to be bad money to follow there? And I think at this point, this is where one withdraws and says, that's not. Councillor Bailey, in her answer to the question posed to her, said, crematorium are highly competitive. And this is actually quite true. Crematorium are highly competitive. And we are going to step into a business which is actually highly competitive. And something which is Councillor Inskip mentioned, there's a crematorium just nearby, run by a company which actually has a lot of capital behind it that we don't. And I think, I agree with Councillor Bailey, it is highly competitive, but it is actually going to be a problem. In fact, I'm actually willing, I'm not sure if I could do this in a council chamber like this, but putting a £100 bet that within 5 years, this crematorium will still not make a profit. Anyone want to take a bet? No?
Can we move it along, please, Councillor Trapp?
Sorry?
Can we move along, please?
Okay, all right. Okay, so no one wants to take a bet. Pity, we're spending 13 million of residents' money, but that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Trapp. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we've got a Liberal Democrat now wanting to make a profit by gambling on a negative attitude. And I think that's not the right way, but if you start off things with a negative attitude, you will eventually get a negative result. Thank you for your support. I know that many of us have all been around in the last few weeks, knocking on people's doors and asking their opinions about almost everything. Well, one of the first things that came over to me when I was doing this was, we're fed up of house building going on and new houses coming along without any infrastructure. And it makes obvious sense, doesn't it? You shouldn't build houses in Northstowe, in Waterbeach or Ely North and just think about schools and roads. I don't know if everybody's aware, but in 1970, 50% of people who died got buried and 50% got cremated. The figures are now 80% being cremated and 20% being buried. And of course, we've got a huge increase in population. So I think we've got to really look at this as what it is. It's infrastructure. And it's going to take a couple of years to build, I should think. And it's going to take time for these houses to come on. But these houses are being built now. And they've got people moving into them. So I think it's absolutely essential that we listen to the people and have the infrastructure before the houses. And this is a way we can do it. It's also of great interest to know that we all know this authority may not exist in 2 years' time. And we may be sharing our reserves of cash with other large authorities who already have eye-watering debts. So how would Little East Cambs survive if it was movable? I think it would go into something like the Milton Road improvement in Cambridge, which cost over 30 million. And the only net result was there's a bicycle route on either side and it's blocked up the city. That's the sort of thing that might happen. So really, 32 million on the Milton Road. I beg your pardon. I'd rather it was sent, the money was spent on things that benefited people from East Cambs, Ealing district and this area. And talking about travelling distances in a car to a crematorium is really academic, because hopefully you're only going to go to sort of 6 or 8 funerals in your life. It's not a thing you do every day like going to work. And therefore, and I've travelled, and from Ely to this site was, I think, about 18.5 minutes. So it's not really that far. I think the result of us having an income ongoing will be great. And I know Councillor Trapp is convinced there won't be an income, but then we can all sit back and criticise and say, I wouldn't have done that, would I? But so far, we've been successful. The borrowing costs that we would have are nil. And any other ones that are being used in the area have, maybe they're having financial troubles because they built it in some cases with borrowed money. And of course, borrowed money needs paying for. And I think we should get on with it. The costs can't go down, they'll go up. And it's a facility which is clearly, if you look at the population figures, a necessary thing for this area and something which will last the community, whether it be a unitary authority or a district council, for many years to come. And people will be proud when they go and drive past there. And of course, we've got, if we leave it as it is, it costs us money. And I'm surprised that the people of Sutton...
Councillor Hunt, can I ask you just to come up, please?
The people of Sutton know that this has been planned for years, because the leader of the opposition was on a working party with me and another Conservative, and she was fully aware of the efforts we made to try and keep the place as a leisure park. She knows it, but she doesn't talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Ambrose Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hunt has just stolen some of my clothes. I was that third Conservative in the, or the second Conservative in the room with Councillor Dupre, and I can't read my own writing now. Cambridgeshire Acre had originally had the franchise for running the Meeple Outdoor Centre, of which we hear so much. They handed it back to East Cambs because they could not make it work. We invited interest from a number of leisure businesses. We had several come in, and one actually said they would take it on. After a few months, they had to admit that they couldn't make it work, so they withdrew. The reason then it laid fallow was because we couldn't think of anything to do with it. So it wasn't that there was a leisure outside sports centre there, it just died away. Now, Councillor Trapp refers to cycle paths. What is it, 2-3 years ago that we invited parish and town councillors to put forward active travel things for consideration, including
cycle paths. I know that because I'm a town councillor for Littleport, and we worked very hard at trying to push to get a good route sorted out. Sustrans were engaged. They looked at several schemes, and Bottisham may well have been one of those. I can't remember now. But at the end of the day, we have tried to do this. Parish councils do have to get off their butts sometimes and do things themselves. Littleport is a large community. We have a town council, and we are in a more fortunate position than many, but we have achieved quite a lot by our own efforts. So, it is possible. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. When I first came to this council, I'd been a new councillor for a short period of time when a resident of Haddenham came along and asked for help. He was the treasurer of the voluntary organisation which was running the Meeple Outdoor Centre. And I went along, I think I spoke to John Hill about it, but we couldn't really do anything very much at the time because it was practical help they wanted. And then unfortunately, within a month or two, he died. And the organisation, which was council, was voluntary, didn't really survive. Later on, as has just been pointed out, we tried to resurrect an outdoor centre with help from outside. And we got somebody, but they couldn't do it because it required about £1 million worth of investment. And that's the reason why they had to give up. East Cambs wasn't prepared to pay £1 million to keep this outdoor centre going. But now we're prepared to pay £13 million to destroy it. And I think it's a really great pity that we are doing this. And I really think that what we should have been doing is following through and keeping the outdoor centre, because the outdoor centre was used by youngsters from all over the district. In fact, people came from outside the district as well. And the youngsters used to really enjoy being there available on the various facilities that were there, the sailing, the climbing, and these other areas of promoting youngsters and promoting people who weren't able to do anything else in that sort of area. So I think really what we've done is we've allowed the outdoor centre to vanish away for a relatively small sum of money, and we're now prepared to let it be totally destroyed and provide us a cremation area that which I'm surely won't work because it won't be able to compete against March. And we'll end up with something which will become a complete and absolute white elephant. So please don't spend all this money on this policy.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Huffer.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to point Councillor Trapp to the sill pot for accessible play that was set up after his colleague, Chika Akinwala, asked for it to be brought forward to council. I believe there's a minimum of 50,000 in there. I believe there may be now more available. And in our parish council meeting on Monday in Fordham, we made the decision, because we need to replace some equipment, we're going to replace it with accessible play, and we are going to approach East Cambs for a grant to help fund it. The rest of the money will be coming from Fordham's own SIL money, because that is a responsible way of doing things. That's the first thing I would like to say. Not everybody, when they're planning a funeral, is looking at just cost. Some people want to say goodbye to their loved ones in a calm and tranquil way. I had the sad job of attending my brother-in-law's funeral in September last year down in Oxford. Councillor Bailey talked about cemeteries these days, or crematorium, being like a sausage factory. If I tell you that the outgoing funeral and the incoming funeral became so intricately bound together because they were in such a hurry to get people through, we weren't even sure we were at the right funeral at one point. It was ghastly. The fact that we are going to be having 2 funerals a day means that people can say goodbye with respect and care. I would like to take issue with Councillor Colbert, who spent many hours on social media saying that we had deliberately closed down the Meeple Centre. That is simply untrue. As Councillor Wilson has just said, the charity that was running it couldn't make a go of it. They were running at a loss. They had to pull out. I was also on the committee with Councillor Dupre and Councillor Hunt and Councillor Ambrose Smith, and I think Councillor Austin might have been on it as well, to look at the alternatives. And the only company that was interested in taking it up was one of these extraordinary wipeout things where you have huge plastic beds of things that they used to see when I go on holiday. You used to see them dotted all along the coastline. They're no longer in business because the lawsuits that were attracted by injuries just took away the business case. And that's exactly the same reason why these people pulled out as well, because it no longer became viable. And I'm glad you think that us becoming, suddenly we are, I think you said, why didn't we take it on? Why didn't we run it? I wasn't aware that East Cambs District Council was in the business of running outdoor centres. And in fact, can I point members opposite to the fact that the County Council, Liberal Democrat controlled County Council, have just closed an outdoor centre in Stibbington because it's no longer viable. I wonder why. Thank you, Chair.
Is it a point of order or personal? Sorry, we have Councillor Lay first.
Thank you very much, Chair. I hope you can all hear me. I just want to say that the remarks Councillor Bailey made about doing 2 upmarket funerals a day from the new crematorium, I think will work and will work very well indeed. But I would like the rest of you to understand about the marketplace before we decide on voting to go ahead with this. I don't know whether you are aware, but the market share for cremations lies with 2 major bodies. The Co-op have 40% of the market and have sales operations in every town across this country and are under contract to Wesley Cremations for carrying out all the cremations that are brought into the Co-op. Dignity have 20% of the market. They have 776 branches across the country selling their services. The market is changing also. Sun Life cost of dying report of 2025 said that 47%, and this is Sun Life's report, not words that I'm putting out of the air, 47% of the people now look for quotations from undertakers before they ever go ahead with a burial or a cremation. And from the same report in 2021, only 2% of the market had direct cheap cremations. In 2022, that figure had raised to 4%. In 2023, it had raised to 10%. And in 2024, last year, it was now at 20% of the market. The National Association of Funeral Plan Providers has 20 licensed members under the Financial Conduct Authority. Direct prepaid cremations last year registered at 114,282, of which 62% of them were unattended cremations. The pre-planned total of cremations now stands at £1.7 million. This is people who have made the decision in advance and have not left it to their loved ones to decide what will happen to them when they die. More of us are making the decision up front, and those of us who are making the decision up front are deciding basically that we don't want to give the money to the undertakers. We'd rather have our body disposed of and for the family to have the money instead. And this is going this way for one other reason. 50% of the people in this country can't put their hands on £500. They just don't have any money. So if you have a look what's happening within the industry, what's happening within the industry is very similar to what happened to bookmakers, vets practices, and now undertakers. If we go back far enough, you'll see that bookmakers were hidden away in all of our towns. Now the large companies with city money have bought them all out, and you'll see Ladbrokes, you'll see William Hills, but you will not see any of the small bookmakers. The vets practices, you will see vets practices still with the name of the vets practice over the door, but in effect, they are owned by the big companies, and undertakers are being bought out. If you go to Fort Hill and have a look at what was an independent undertaker there, they still have the same name over the door, but underneath it says Dignity.
Councillor Lee, can I just ask you to sum up,
I
please?
will, yes, certainly. The change in buying habits is happening. The way we're buying funerals is changing. And just to finish with, if you have a look at what's happening on our doorstep with Cambridge Crematorium, within this circle here of 25 miles, Cambridge Crematoriums will send a van out, pick up a body and take it back to be cremated. So the market is changing. Please, if you only want to do 2 a day, you may get away with it. But in general, this is a market that is changing dramatically. So don't waste your money. Be careful with the people who gave us that money. Let's use it sensibly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. I have Councillor Sharp next.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to pick up a few points that have been said around this. Yes, this was came into the public domain, I think, as Councillor Inskip mentioned, back in 2020. So members of the public have been aware of our proposals since then. Obviously, we had to discuss things in confidence because a lot of this is commercially sensitive. If we release that information out into the public domain, then those who want to compete against us would obviously be able to pick the various holes that they want to and in our proposals, and then that they would gain a commercial advantage because they would know what our costs were and prices. I think what we've had before us, there's conservative projections in there in terms of the outcomes. And what we're also forgetting or not touching on in 5.11, we're looking at year 2 to 10 operating profits on a average basis. Now, obviously, none of us can foresee totally the future, but I think these figures have been done on a conservative basis, and that operating profit will be ploughed back into the council. It's coming back into residents. So it's not money that's going to go down and be lost forever. I think you've got to look at the track record of this council with the trading company, where we refurbished 88 homes from the MOD, the CLT, Kennet and others, Barton Road, Hadnam. Not one penny of public money was spent on building any of those houses. They've been built basically for nothing by using and borrowing, in some cases from the combined authority or borrowing from the council, and we've actually achieved that. So we've got a track record for actually doing something like that. Councillor Hunt touched, I had the misfortune, I think it's best served, driving down Milton Road yesterday afternoon. No traffic around. It took me about 10 minutes because at every traffic light you were stopped for about 5 minutes. I mean, and that was £36 million that is now on the ground in tarmac. That money's lost forever. I mean, I'm from the south of the district, so I don't know Meeple as well as other, obviously I've driven past it many times. But as I understand it, Meeple was totally destroyed in the end by fire and by arson, but basically we needed to do something with that site. And I believe that the working party that were looking at that found that there wasn't a taker, there wasn't a commercial operator who was going to take it on. So we had to do something with it. So I do feel that, yes, we're obviously the market is changing, but I do feel, to sum up, that the projections that we've got are based on conservative projections. So I think we are covering ourselves there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Colbert.
It's all right, Chair. I shall not respond now on other authorities. When the member has been named, they have been permitted to respond immediately rather than to use the already arranged order. I think my colleague, Councillor James Lay, has made some very, very valid points, and I prefer to say nothing at this stage now. Thank you.
Councillor Du Preez.
Thank you, Chair. This is a white elephant vanity project and it needs to stop. It started off badly, with public money being spent on it for 18 months in secret without councillors being informed, and now it's being forced through this council against huge public opposition, even though costs have ballooned from 8 million to 13 million. It's a grotesque waste of that money, which was required and received from developers to support local communities with the impact of development in their area. Instead, it's being used to build a commercial business and start a beggar my neighbour price war with an established private sector competitor. And the residents of East Cambridgeshire were never asked whether they wanted it. The site is next door to a smelly biodigester with aggregate lorries thundering past every minute from the workings across the road. It's the furthest you can get in East Cambridgeshire from much of the district, whose residents will continue to use more established facilities nearer to home. And it's the nearest you can get in East Cambridgeshire to the competing crematorium 12 minutes up the road in March, which is already operating below capacity. This isn't going to be the money spinner the consultants have told you it will be. The cremation market is changing, as we've heard, with a huge shift to cheap and heavily marketed direct or pure cremations. There isn't an unfulfilled demand for more cremation space. It's a static market, with each new crematorium relying on taking market share from its neighbours and making all of them less viable. The latest publicly available figures from cremation.org.uk show that between 2020 and 2023, the new crematorium opened by Huntingdon Town Council grew to a point when it was managing over 800 cremations a year, though the facility is still struggling financially. But in that same period, annual cremations at Peterborough fell by around 130 and at Cambridge by over 500. Bury St Edmunds' throughput rose by 400 annually, but the other Suffolk crematoria between them handled 450 fewer cremations every year. It's been said that this facility is needed because we don't have a crematorium in East Cambridgeshire. But most people don't consult local government boundaries when they choose where to remember their loved ones. And in any case, East Cambridgeshire will cease to be a district in 3 years' time as a result of local government reorganisation, at which point, depending how the government slices up the map, we could have 2 or even 3 crematoria in our new council area. It's also been said that this council needs to spend the money to stop it falling into the hands of those neighbouring councils before we are joined to them in the reorganisation and take on a share of their debts. But if that is the case, any profit from this venture, and as I've said, I don't believe there will be any, won't benefit the people of East Cambridgeshire. It will just be used to pay off their debts. You've lost the 13 million and you've lost the income that you think you'll gain from it. So why not use that £13 million wisely and well on education facilities for developments in Littleport and North Ely, where the money in the budget has been delayed, for the desperately overcrowded health centre at Soham, to which this council has so far allocated not one single penny, on better and more accessible playgrounds, cycleways, pedestrian routes. This council isn't responsible for those things, the council leader said on the radio this morning. And she said in this meeting just now that this council wasn't responsible for, I can't remember what it was she said, but something else. But neither is it responsible for competing with the private sector to cremate the dead. What happened to the small government of the Conservative Party? This emperor has no clothes. Members opposite have been whipped to praise the richness of their colours and the suppleness of their fabric. They will tell the emperor how fine she looks in them. But there are no clothes, and some of you can see that. Some of you can. This project is a complete waste of £13 million, for which there are so many better uses, the uses for which it was intended. Please use your better judgment and your courage and vote against this grotesque scheme.
Thank you, Councillor de Bray. Are there any other speakers before we go to Councillor Kane?
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to thank Vanessa, Charmaine, Drew and Simon for asking their questions and clearly stating their views. And I would note that of those four, only one supported this proposal. The proposal for a crematorium doesn't deliver a good return on investment. It adds to carbon emissions. It will use most of current and assumed future SIL funds, and there are existing crematoria nearby. The costs for the crematorium are expected to be £13 million, a significant increase on the original estimate of £8 million. The estimated net income has fallen to just 2.9 million over the first 10 years of operation. At that rate, it would take 40 years just to recoup the investment, not allowing for additional cyclical maintenance and replacement costs. In order to keep costs to this level, the council will only install the minimum number of solar panels required by planning guidance, meaning that the crematorium will be a net emitter of carbon. We have formally recognised the climate emergency and committed to get to net zero. And now the administration is proposing to proceed with a project which will make that hard to achieve unless third parties come in to bail us out. In February 2025, it was reported to the council that the remaining SIL funds were less than the outstanding commitments. It was agreed to reallocate the funds. The balance was then to be provided from future SIL income. And Councillor Huffer, that included the accessible playgrounds. There is nil allocated at the moment. There was to be more to come. That's what the papers say. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm the councillor who was misled by an officer of this council when I specifically asked a question about the bereavement centre. We've also heard a lot of information today about how there was nobody interested in that site. And yet I have heard from a local charity that they did indeed propose to take the whole site, and they were told that because they didn't have their whole business plan ready, they couldn't be considered, because we'd been spending, this council anyway, had been spending 18 months in secret preparing its crematorium plan, we now know. Because the increases of the crematorium costs, a further almost £4 million will now need to come from the future funds before any other community infrastructure could be funded. In addition to the projects already identified, as we've heard, the GP surgery in Soham is bursting. It needs larger premises, and it is going to need funds from this council to deliver that. And I'm very surprised that Councillor Hunt, in his canvassing, didn't find a lot of people telling him that, because I certainly did in my canvassing. As we've heard this evening, there are already surplus provision of crematorium services, so there's no need for this crematorium, which risks being an expensive white elephant for the council. Now, I know many of the members opposite run their own businesses. Before voting for this project, they should ask themselves whether they would invest in a project where it would take at least 40 years just to recoup the investment. before they begin to see any real return? If they're honest, the answer to that is clearly no, and so they wouldn't do that investment. Councillor Bailey said in answer to the questioner, the question is the taxpayer getting value for money? £13 million, which could be spent on all sorts of community facilities around the district. £13 million that it will take 40 years just to get back that £13 million. Don't shake your heads. You yourselves have said it's going to earn a net 2.9 million in the first 10 years. Do the maths. So honestly, this is not good value for the taxpayer. It's not even an investment. It's just, I am amazed that anyone who has any business sense whatsoever will even countenance this. It's not good for the taxpayer, and I think every member should be very careful what they do with the public funds in which we are entrusted, and I would like a recorded vote on this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. Do we have any other speakers before the seconder? Councillor Akinwala.
Thank you, Chair. I strongly feel that this money can be better spent in providing inclusive play, like many of our councillors have said this evening. I feel that this area severely lacks inclusive play areas that needs to be dealt with now, not in the far-fetched future. I feel that this money, if it's spent now, can be used to develop fully accessible adult facilities that's usable for not just for the few, but children with disabilities in this area. It is really, really important that every child, regardless of where they are from, their background, is not excluded from the community. I feel that we need to provide a safe and stimulating environment for children for these children to be able to play again alongside their peers. Looking at the actual plan of our local plan in East Cambridgeshire and East District Cambridgeshire, I feel that this is a visible and impactful expression of our council's commitment to strengthen our community, to make sure that we're inclusive and we're really a sustainable community, not just for the very few, but for children of all backgrounds. I've got a brother who's got autism, and I know the distress that I went through as a sibling when he was growing up, being excluded from playgrounds around the area. I know the importance of every child in this area being able to have access to a play area, not being excluded just because they have a disability or have any sort of anything that's going to exclude them. I think it's really important that we try to look at the bigger picture here and make sure there's the funds available to support these children right now and not in some far-fetched future. Thank you.
Thank you. You've spoken, Councillor Colbert. Are there any other speakers before the seconder? No? We move to the seconder.
Thank you very much, Chair. Look, can I thank the opposition for their interesting perspective. Look, I mean, Councillor Dupre wants an alternative, so I don't understand why they wouldn't offer one amicably. I don't understand why we have the patronising jibes that are genuinely held decent idea. Yes, of course, some people want an alternative. This council tried very hard before my time for a new outdoor centre, as I understand from others. But this project was in our manifesto. And when we went to the electorate in May 2023, we won. So we want our endeavours to work at this council. The opposition have mentioned that there's going to be, in their view, no financial benefit. Well, firstly, there is. I can't refer to the specific market analysis, but we have done specific market analysis. It is much better than is being made out. But making money in the district was never the motivation. I don't understand why it would have been. It's simply a consequence of the quality and the beautiful lakeside service that we'll be providing, which a future council will benefit from. So I don't think we should sanction saying we shouldn't do this because of local government reorganisation either. And they talk about a price war. As I say, I can't discuss the market analysis, but it's not why we're doing it. It's a consequence, not a motivation, and far from a reason to stop. So I went up to the site last week, like I did when we were asked to approve the business case. So I sat there for a while. To me, it's the only solution which protects that really rich biodiversity. I don't actually know anyone else in East Cambridgeshire where you can see otters, for example. And it's in a terrible state. There's fly tipping everywhere. And look, after the outdoor centre was not viable, which I'll put on record, I would prefer. If it was viable, I would love to do that, genuinely, but it's not. And I think of a bereavement centre. I lost my granddad last year. I know he would want to be somewhere like that. And it turns out a similar story to Councillor Huffer. It's not the way we would have liked to have done it. So look, it takes care of residents. I support it on principle, but there's been a change, right? So I told the Director of Operations, I don't mind sharing this, we need 4 assurances, and they are exactly what is contained in this paper. The cost rose because the inflation was utterly unprecedented in the building industry, particularly the steel industry. We're far from the only provider to account for more risk. The cost reductions will not at all impact the state-of-the-art quality of that service. I'm genuinely stunned at the clarity of that plan and at the beauty of the site. And now that the process is completed, there are extremely few uncertainties left. That's a live market price now. But the most important point of all, and I think this is something we will all share, we can pay for this sustainably without hurting other projects by using the same pot of SIL we originally intended, the other pot of SIL, and fully funding the many others we've committed to. I mean, the only white elephant is the claim that we're sacrificing community facilities. That's not true. In the future, we will have income, and a proportion of that will go to the other pot, and a proportion of it will go to the existing pots like schools, the leisure centre, the health facilities, Ely Country Park, inclusive play, for which I'm in total agreement with Councillor Akinwale, and the bereavement centre will then be from what is left over in the other pot. And many others are on our SIL list as well that have not yet had applications made to them. Just to pick a few, Sam Station, Wickham Cycle Path, Recycling Centre, GP surgeries. There's so much on there, and Councillor Bailey listed many more earlier. We talk a little bit about the sunk costs of £2 million. Yes, we've spent £2 million. What the opposition haven't seemed to acknowledge is that if we don't then capitalise those costs, they become a huge burden on the revenue budget. So we basically have to raise council tax to cover it. And that's not what I'm in the business to do. And I'm afraid the sunk cost fallacy only really applies when things aren't worth doing anymore. And this so clearly is. The business case is almost identical to how it was before. It's still viable. We do have to make another tough call to get there. I completely appreciate that. But if we are to be abolished, then this is what I want our council's final message to be. I want to give local people a chance to say goodbye to their loved ones by the lakeside in the heart of the Fens. That's a chance they don't currently have. Even those who disagree with the specifics of this site will acknowledge that that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And that's my motivation. It's not profit, it's not convenience, it's not competition, it's certainly not party loyalty. I can't believe some members of the opposition would sink so low as to suggest that. And I'd never vote for it if I thought it would harm my residents. It helps them. So with them in mind, I am voting in favour of this tough call, so that whatever happens at the end of this crazy life, my residents and my family can go back there at the end because of a decision that I made tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Vellacott. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Yes, I do have a few things to address, but I'm loath to follow that amazing speech by Councillor Vellacott, really. The Lib Dems chair are very good at saying what they don't want and what they don't want us to do. They objected to the Ely Southern Bypass. It was described as a white elephant, somewhat nonsensically. They objected to the regeneration of 88 houses on the former MOD housing site in Ely. They objected to the £1.2 million that this council has allocated to the building of a brand new GP surgery in Streatham because the Haddenham surgery is bursting at the seams, and yet they objected to this council supporting that project. Absolutely astonishing. And they objected to the Hive Leisure Centre. So the Liberal Democrat history at this council is to object to all of these facilities and community projects and ideas for our community. It would be nice if they put forward some positive vision for a change, because I've yet to hear any positive suggestion from them that is viable at all for the site in question. I, of course, respect the right to object to this proposal, and I do that respectfully. But I have to say, Chair, it is quite wrong to spin stories that the council closed or abandoned the outdoor centre in order to somehow deliver this project. The two are absolutely not linked in any way at all. I was here at the time. We were absolutely wedded and excited about the idea of delivering the outdoor centre and the new provider that was coming in. We were completely gutted when they had to pull out because they could not make the capital investment that was required stack up against the income. And that is the problem with outdoor high leisure impact facilities. They're not working, and the county council knows that. It's had its own struggles on that subject. The public engagement that Councillor Inskip referred to only solicited 188 responses, most of which I have to say were from Sutton. And 85% of the people that responded to that very early public engagement exercise told us that they had very important historical allegiances to the old outdoor centre. So I don't think it's very surprising that many of them expressed a desire to keep it open. And obviously we tried very hard to do that. And it wasn't helped by the fact that councillors Inskip and Dupre continued for many years to peddle the myth that that site could be used for an outdoor centre when we all knew it couldn't if we wanted to respect the wildlife and biodiversity that exists on that site. And they continued to pretend to residents that it was possible to...
Councillor Bailey.
That claim.
Councillor King, could you just confirm which procedural rule your point of order refers to?
I'm raising a point of information about what Councillor Bailey has just said. She has said yet again that the site was incompatible with the environmental nature of it. I have asked officers over and over again for the documentary evidence of that, and I have never received it.
Can you carry on, please?
That is not a personal explanation. She hadn't even spoken on the subject. Just to reiterate, the advice from the Wildlife Trust is that the compatible leisure use on that site is low level impact leisure use, walking, controlled walking, controlled dog walking, controlled fishing and bird watching. The use of SIL, members opposite have talked a lot about health services, cycling and walking, and I noted it in some of their social media content. Health services are actually the responsibility of the health service, the National Health Service, to deliver, and the private practices that are GP services and the way that that operates in this country. Cycling and walking facilities are actually the responsibility of Cambridgeshire County Council to deliver. They are the Highways Authority, with some assistance and support in certain instances from the combined authority and indeed from government. They are not the responsibility of our SIL money to pay for those services. Regardless of that, we have done a huge amount from this council to support those types of services, not least the 1.21 million for Streatham GP surgery, which the members opposite voted against some of that funding. We've done more than any council in Cambridgeshire to further the interests of cycling and walking opportunities through our work in developing all the feasibility studies in order to hand that over to the responsible authorities that are responsible for delivering those. SIL is not about recouping money. It's about supporting infrastructure that provides services and facilities for our community, and a bereavement centre is absolutely that.
We've just given you another 30 seconds.
Thank you, I appreciate that because I was interrupted. And I wanted to say that I don't know the intricacies of Huntingdon's business case, and I'm surprised that Councillor Dupre is so familiar with it, but I am aware that Huntingdon borrowed the money in order to deliver their site. So they are paying huge interest payments. That won't be a burden that we have to suffer. This doesn't add to the carbon emissions.
Can I ask you to sum up, please, Councillor Bailey?
They're going to be cremated. They're going to be cremated somewhere. And actually, if they're cremated more locally, it will lessen the carbon emissions. So I really want people to support this project. It is a good project. And
thank you, Councillor Bailey. We have been requested for a recorded vote. So I will now pass to Jane.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to call your name. If you can tell me whether you're for or against. Hang on. Councillor Akinwale.
Against.
Councillor Ambrose Smith.
For.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Bovingdon.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Kane.
Against.
Councillor Colbert,
Against.
Councillor Denny,
Against.
Councillor Dupre, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Goldsack,
For.
Councillor Goodall,
For.
Councillor Holtzman,
Against.
Councillor Horgan,
For.
Councillor Huffer,
For.
Councillor Hunt,
For.
Councillor Inskip,
Against.
Councillor Lay,
Against.
Councillor Miller,
For.
Councillor Pettit,
For.
Councillor Sharp,
For.
Councillor Trapp, Councillor Trent,
Against.
Councillor Vellacott,
For.
Councillor Wade,
Against.
Councillor Alison Whelan,
Against.
Councillor Christine Whelan,
Against.
Councillor Gareth Wilson,
Against.
Chair, that's 14 all.
Thank you, members. As you can see, the result of the vote is tied. I am able to exercise my casting vote. After careful consideration, I will be voting in favour of the motion. The motion is carried. We move to agenda item 19A, which is the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority appointments. Members, I now move to agenda item 19A. The Cambridgeshire members, the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority membership and other appointments, and I hand over to our Democratic Services and Elections Manager to present the report. Jane.
Thank you, Chair. Some changes have been made to the report that's in your agenda pack when it was published, but the final report was circulated to all members on Monday. I've received nominations under section A of the report, Councillor Vellacott and Councillor Horgan as sub, and Councillor Christine Whelan and Councillor Inskip as sub are nominated as members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And under section B of the report, Councillor Inskip and Councillor Christine Whelan as sub are nominated as members of the Audit and Governance Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I have a proposer?
I'm happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. And a seconder?
Chair.
Thank you. Do you reserve your right?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any speakers for this? No. Councillor Huffer? Did you?
Nothing further to say,
No.
Chair.
Councillor Bailey? Nothing? Will you take it to the vote? All those in favour by show of hands? That's unanimous. We go to agenda item 19B. The Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority Update Reports. These are just for noting. Does anyone have any questions for the representative on these committees? No. Does anyone have any questions on the update reports of the Combined Authority? No. We move on to agenda item 20, which is actions taken on the grounds of urgency. This item is for noting. Are we all in agreement? Thank you. I now move that the press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting under Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. I will propose. Can I have a seconder? Keith, thank you. All those in favour to move to closed session? Yeah, everyone, thank you. Just wait.